maybe we could start with some introductions, kind of just while we're doing up the room. And I'll just like open it up to anybody that wants to introduce themselves. Just bear in mind that yeah, we have like 20, yeah, 50 people, and you take 2 minutes to introduce yourself. That's the entire meeting gone. So if you want to say hi, just let us know maybe who you are, where you're based, and maybe like a project that you're passionate about. And I'll also share that I've created an agenda. So everybody can use this agenda to add their name. So while people are introducing themselves, I'll drop the link for this in the chat, and you can just add your name into the agenda, so we've got a record of who you are. And if there's any projects that you're talking about, then you can write them in there, and people can check them out if they're interested. So I'll open up the floor if anyone wants to introduce themselves.
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Joshua. I'm the founder of DeSci World. I met Cooper in Germany and Thailand, and very excited to see how OHM can progress over the next year or so.
Hey guys, I'm Paul. So I'm the founder of ThoughtWave, and yeah, lots of alignment with OHM and lots of good conversations with Cooper. So very keen to see how this all evolves. It's good.
I might just jump in. I'm Troy. I helped Cooper kind of get OHM off the ground and kind of start the community and get things up and running. And I'm still here in Brisbane while he travels the world and shares the gift with everyone. So.
And hi, I'm Kelly. I'm from Modifier, which is how I met Cooper through. So great to meet you all and be along here tonight.
Don't be shy. Anyone welcome to introduce yourselves to the crowd.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Sorry.
Hi, Coops. Hi, my name is Angela Sierra, and I am an industrial designer, and I have done some artwork for Open Heart and Mind and some other little projects. And yeah, happy to be here. Very exciting.
Hi, my name is Christina. I'm from the Dharma Code. It's a fundraising platform for Bhutanese filmmakers and artists. And we also have a film coming out as well, made by a Bhutanese filmmaker. And we just learned about this project through funding the Commons Town Hall last week. So I thought I'd join.
Hey guys, I'm Abraham. I was involved in OHM's Gathering in the east coast of Australia. I'm a filmmaker and an aquascape gardener and a poet and a performer. Very big supporter of what Coop's doing and excited to be here.
Hello, I'm Tufik. I'm a mechanical, medical engineer, and fire performer. I've been following Coops, Angela, Abram, and many other people in the field, and Troy. I'm curious to see where we all are at.
Who's next?
Hello, I'm Riley. I am currently in Brisbane. I haven't seen a lot of yous for, I don't know, probably 9 months or so. So I got an email the other week, and since I'm down here for the next 10 to 12 weeks or so, I thought I'd check in and just get an update, see what happened on Cooper's trip and what's going on in the OHM community.
Hi everyone, my name's Kathy. I used to work with Cooper at QBI. I went to one of the OHM gatherings and I'm just checking in to see where things are at and excited to hear some updates.
Hi, my name is Jan. I met Cooper last year in Chiang Mai when he was visiting for the pop-up cities. And I am from Myanmar. I'm based in Chiang Mai, and I do data visualization and some civic tech. So really excited to see and hear about the updates, and would love to try it out.
Anyone else? Self-introduction.
Hello. Am I on?
You're on.
Oops. I interrupted somebody. I'm Shay. I'm calling from Yeppoon at High Valley Dawn Permaculture Farm. And I met Cooper on a dance floor somewhere, and I thought, this guy's got some crazy good moves. I think he has a story to tell, and I was right. He started to tell me about OM, and I've been fascinated ever since. So really keen to see this all moving along.
Hi everyone, I'm Siddhi Advani. Cooper and I, we met at Zugrama, and I think I got to see Cooper's OHM presentation like 3 times. A lot of it was public demand. Yeah, I'm excited about what this project can do and how it can really change like academia and like a bunch of other areas that are I would say really sort of need the OHM. So happy to be a part of this and get to know all of y'all.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I'm an epidemiologist in Brisbane. I was ready to quit academia altogether, but encountered Cooper's idea at a conference a couple of years ago now, I think. Yeah, it must be 18 months maybe. Anyway, I've worked on the AMOS sort of prototype version of OHM, looking at how it can be used in sort of open science value framework. So yeah, really excited to see so many different faces and places and ways of thinking. So nice to meet you all.
Hi everyone. I'm Adam. Previously, I was at my PhD in neuroscience and also open research training as well. So interested in kind of open science. Been chatting with Cooper online a little bit and learned about the project that way. And I'll be talking a little bit in a few minutes about my current role as founding program manager for Metavaluation Alliance.
Hey guys, I'm Kishore. I met Coops at Zugrama, India. We had a long conversations on governance, meta science, and all of that. I'm currently working with Microbiome DAO and Molecule in DeSci. Super happy to join this moment. We also brainstormed a lot, and Cooper helped me in one of my recent publications on delegated governance and stuff. Super happy to be here, guys.
Anyone else like to introduce themselves? It's okay, it's optional. I'm impressed so many cameras on today. This is great. Feels like we actually have a room full of people. Not talking to myself.
Hi, Cooper. Hi, my name is Yishe and I'm from Bhutan. I met Cooper in Chiang Mai last time during the Edge City, and we had a really good conversation about governance and all these interesting topics. So I'm very happy to be invited to this council, and I hope we can create something together. Thank you.
Last chance for introductions before we kick off.
Hi, I'll just quickly say hi everyone. I'm in New Zealand. I'm really interested in all these things, governance, yeah, the community commons where yeah, whatever's useful for our communities. I'm keen to hear what you're all up to. Thank you.
Okay, well, unless there's any more introductions, last chance. Anyone? Was that an introduction, iPhone? Coming up as iPhone for me.
Hi, I'm me.
Hi.
Currently at Bindaraby, just offered my first seating of a co-created community gathering, and the next one's next month. Have some big visions for community spaces, be gifting a community spaces. So super feel like Cooper's platform is aligned, and also the treasurer currently. And yeah, super excited to be a part of this and to see where it goes. Thank you, Cooper and all.
Yay, thanks me. And thanks me. I think we should all thank me for being here. I want to thank all of you for being here. This project, this community doesn't thrive without people. It's just a bunch of ideas. So thank each and every one of you for turning up and being part of this. I'm beyond thrilled to open this space. And yeah, I guess as part of opening, I want to really honor the diversity of people that we have here. We've got people across different countries, different fields, very different walks of life. And I think that is one of our goals with ON is to be open and inclusive to everybody. And I guess on that note, most of you should have seen when you signed that you ticked a little thing that is terms and conditions, and that included a link to our participant covenant. So we are operating under a code of conduct that basically says, in a nutshell, be kind, respect people. And then secondly, the part that I'll talk about later is that we are entering into an experiment. So even just being part of this call, you have consented to have your contributions to this space be recognized and rewarded, but also acknowledging that this is an imperfect system. We haven't really done anything like this before. And so there might be cases where you disagree with the valuations that we collectively decide, but just to accept that this is an experimental space and we should give freely without any expectation of return. And so on that note, today's session is about values, and I'll show you the roadmap for the year later on when I give my talk. But in keeping with the theme of values, I wanted to invite a few people to introduce some movements that inspired ON. And those three movements were basically related to the environment, the arts, and science. And for about 20 years or so, my driving force has been to try and figure out some kind of a solution to climate change. And so that's where the environment comes in. I realized through my work in academia that if we could kickstart some kind of an open science system, then that could connect people around the world. So that's the science element. And the last part of ON that really came together into the vision that has kickstarted what we're doing right now is realizing that we can activate these ideas in a community arts gathering space. And so those are the three elements. And so I've invited three people that can speak to community projects within each of those areas, just to kind of kick off this discussion about what values we all have in this very diverse group, and then to open the conversation about how we might test, how we might define collective values through the system we're developing. And so to kick off, I'm going to invite Shay to present about the permaculture farm that he mentioned briefly. And then just before you start, Shay, the other two talks will be potentially Kelly, if you feel like speaking to modifiers. Yep, great. And then Adam, as he said, we'll be talking about the meta science alone. So without further ado, and also, yeah, we're just gonna have to keep time quite tight because we've still got a lot to get through. So maybe between 3 to 5 minutes would be ideal. And then, yeah, we'll kick on quickly. Thanks, Shay. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Cooper. Can everyone hear and see me okay? Is that all good?
Yes.
Just
Dr.
wanted to say
Shirley.
thanks for the invitation, and like what an honor to be speaking amongst so many people that I really respect a lot. And thanks to the OM team, Cooper and Troy, and a few of the guys that have visited the land here for all the work we've done to date. And yeah, I guess I get the chance to speak because I've been really blessed to be part of this project, which is potentially sort of perfect for trialing a platform such as OM. I'll just let's see. I'll just share a slide here. Sorry. Is that coming up okay?
Yes, it is now.
Sharing? Cool. Yeah, so I guess I might be in my own little feedback bubble, but it seems like a lot of people are starting to talk about alternative economies and gifting economies. And it's not only out in our circles, but sort of around the world. Like you see the Burning Man movement and movement of like cryptocurrency and these sorts of concepts that are sort of revolutionizing the way that we think. So this is High Valley Dawn Permaculture Farm, and we inherited this 140-acre allotment as a bare block with no roads or fences, a lot of regrowth and lantana, and had a master plan over it to subdivide into small blocks about 9 years ago. So sort of coming from the world of property development and real estate, my dad and I, Ross, so I think Ross, I don't think he's made it on the call yet, but we set out on a mission about 12 years ago to create a self-sufficient, resilient village model that could be replicated around the world. So you can see here, there's some infrastructure that's gone in. There's a 7-bedroom upcycled volunteer house that Ian's dialing in from, who's on the call. And that's in the middle of the screen there. And then we've got some tiny homes down to the right, beginnings of the community facility and the community centre. And opposite that is the market garden, the food forest, the bush tucker forest. And then over right on the right there, you can see my little house over the other side of the hill, which is the beginnings of like a long-term community. So Cooper wanted me to talk about some of our like contributions and achievements, basically. And I thought it was suitable to do that through the lens of the permaculture ethics of earth care, people care, and fair share, to which we often add future care as a fourth ethic. So care of the earth, yeah, we've got like a 2-acre market garden where we chop, drop, mulch, compost, build soil structure. We're growing a range of annual crops, which feeds the volunteers and goes to our restaurants. We actually started this whole project because we couldn't purchase organic produce locally, so we started to grow it ourselves, basically, and it's just snowballed from there. We've got a food forest, which grows a lot of species of tropical fruits and other things and stores carbon, and it's all built on swales, and we've had partnerships with the Great Barrier Reef Foundations and various other Fitzroy Basin Association, our local NRM and things. So yeah, and then a 2-acre bush tucker food forest, which we just put in a couple of years ago, which is called Bururu, which is named after the green tree frog. It's just a local Durrumbal sigil. Yeah, people care. We care for our people, so we welcome volunteers and guests from around the world, and we're giving them an opportunity to experience living off grid and community. And many people we've taken in from like the local community centre and recovery centres, and we've had some real success doing that. There's fair share, return of surplus. So we're sharing our knowledge, and we want to involve the local community through workshops and events and our annual festival. And the farm crew largely eat off the land. We're trying to be as self-sufficient as possible. And we're taking the surplus produce that we create to the local markets or to the food relief in Yeppoon. Yeah, I am reading off some notes that I made here, so I apologize if it's not super entertaining the way that I'm speaking. But just wanted to cover off on a few things. Yeah. Then future care. Yeah, we're thinking about the legacy that we want to create 7 generations ahead. So We had over 800 school students through the property on excursions and campouts in 2024, and we have a full range of kids workshops at our annual gathering. And now we're looking at developing like an alternative school on the land as well. So yeah, we're sort of finally getting to the point where we are creating like a financially sustainable business model. Although we wouldn't have got here without significant investment from Ross particularly, and from the 400 plus volunteers who've been giving their time and energy, who've come from all around the world to help make this happen. And yeah, we've got big dreams and visions, and we've decided recently for this to be achieved, we need to share the land and bring more people in with more energy and resources to achieve like the sort of highest and best use of this land, which is like we see it as like a once in a lifetime opportunity and a once in a lifetime sort of piece of land that we've got here. So we're looking at developing like an eco village model, which will be like 1/3 housing allotments, like 1 acre blocks, 1/3 will be like bush regen and protected areas, and then 1/3 will be community facilities. And it's designed around Dunbar's number, so like 100 to 150 people, approximately 1 acre per person, enough land basically for everybody to survive in perpetuity if we do it right and design it right and grow a lot of food on land that we'll be able to survive here with the small community off it. So we sort of have like a functioning small economy with the volunteers and some enterprises running, but it could be expanded a lot with more like community enterprises, more contributors, more entrepreneurs joining the space. And yeah, we're going to do our best to attract the right type of people who have useful skills that could be contributed and traded and brought to this little localized economy. So yeah, I think it's a really good, I guess that's why Crip was sort of referred to me as that it's a good example of project that might be useful for the on platform. So that's about all I had to say. Sorry, that was a lot to try and get in a few minutes. But thanks, Cooper. I see you've got your hand up, and I just want to say, like, yeah, thanks for all of the work and the community that you've built. This is awesome. Great to see it come together.
Thanks, Shay. Yeah, the hand was time's up.
All right, sorry. Thanks.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, it's really great to get an overview of what you guys are doing, and then really exciting to see your plans for what could potentially be our first permaculture implementation of the system. Very excited for that. So thank you. I think I'll pass the mic to Kelly now, if you could stop sharing, Shay.
Thanks, Shay. That was really interesting. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep, great. So my background is that I was the treasurer for Modifier for 5 years. So that's how I met Cooper. I'm delighted for personal reasons to say I've recently retired. So I'm just here, I'm just chatting from my history rather than representing anything from a committee perspective. But being treasurer, you get a really interesting perspective into how things fit together and how it all works. So for those that don't know, Modifier is a Southeast Queensland regional event that happens under the umbrella of Burning Man. So it has all of the same principles, so it's a temporary self-sustaining community, but that's really focused on art and self-expression, participation, those sorts of things. So we've got the same 10 principles that Burning Man has about radical self-expression and communal effort, all of those sorts of things. And there's the same kind of cultural pieces to it as well. So there's a temple and an effigy burn. The real focus on the art bit. But Modifier is just one of many in quite a big ecosystem of all of the things that come out of Burning Man. So I think there's probably 7 different regional events around Australia that are, acknowledged as Burning Man endorsed. And there'd likely be probably, 100 around the world. So, so one of the disadvantages of that is that it can be quite hard to change the principles. And gosh, we've spent a lot of time talking about should there be an 11th and different burns have different 11th principles, those sorts of things. But some of the advantages of it is that we've had a couple of, so in the 10 years that Modify has been running, we've probably had 3 different leadership teams that have driven the event. So having this kind of core set of principles has meant that we've stayed on the same track rather than being influenced too much by personalities and those sorts of things. And so with the keeping on track, one of the things that Modifier is needed is new people coming in to keep the event fueled with the volunteers and all of those sorts of things. So it's meant that one of the priorities we have is the role of greeters at the front, so they can make sure that everyone who's coming into the event knows what the principles are, knows how to be engaged, all of those sorts of things. Our time is going very quickly, so I'll just so I guess part of the ecosystem that I was talking to about Modifier, one of the really beautiful things is the network. So there's Bonza, which is a Asia Pacific annual get together, so we can hear about how burns in New Zealand have been run and what happened in China, those sorts of things. And there's also a thing called Burners Without Borders. I think this group's going to quite like it, but it's all of the international volunteering and leadership pieces that come out of the Burning Man movement. So I'll pop that in the chat too. So where we are now is we're just in version 3 of our new team. So things have been pretty, I'm sure you all know how tough things have been to get off the ground in the last couple of years. But we've got a few kind of things that we're looking at, questions in our mind, but we are moving forwards, and it's going to be something that's quite different to what our history is, but it's also quite liberating to shed the past and take stock about what's right, what works, what leans on the strengths to the people that we have, all of those sorts of questions. Thanks. Any quick questions or
Yeah, anyone? Very quick question. Anyone? I have a question if no one else does. How hard is it to get registered as an official Burning Man event? And can we do that, please?
There are a few steps to the process. I actually wasn't on the committee when it happened. But the origin of the committee was the Burning Man registration process. And it comes with some requirements on top of it. There's specific insurances and afterburner reports and that kind of stuff. And so the other piece that Modifier has is we've got an ABN, we're registered as a not-for-profit incorporation, all of those sorts of things. So I'm not quite sure which 2 bits of those. I think you need to be the not-for-profit incorporated to be, but it's certainly possible. The Third Degree just outside Sydney is Australia's newest official burn, so very doable.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe we can explore that. I think it would be really great.
Yeah, happy to chat offline.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Great. So we've had environment, we've had heart, if you might call it, and now to the mind. Adam, throwing it over to you for the Meta Science Alliance.
Okay, so if I hit slideshow, you should be able to see my screen. Is that full screen for everyone?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, amazing. All right, so yeah, I'm Adam Partridge. I'm going to be talking very briefly about the Meta Science Alliance, which is a new initiative that we're founding. It's launching in June at the Metascience 2025 conference. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it now. So firstly, take a step back. What is meta-science? So you'll often hear it called things like the science of science or research on research. And again, this is really nice, snappy intro to what it is, but I don't think it really fully captures the kind of diversity of opinions and the sort of inclusivity of the overall movement of meta-science. It is a much broader thing than that. So I prefer this, obviously, more broad definition. So the study of research norms, practices, and cultures for the purpose of intervening and improving research itself. I think this nails something that those earlier definitions don't, which is it's not just an academic discipline. We're just studying how science works and kind of publishing papers and just kind of admiring the problem. There's a whole other angle to that, which is actually how do we improve things as well. So this kind of goes beyond a lot of pure academic discipline into the realms of how do we apply that information to make things better as well. So another really interesting thing, and shows the kind of diversity, so just within academia, so these are kind of academic fields, this figure shows each of these colored blobs represents, you can see physical sciences on the top left, mathematics and computer science, and others. But you can see these same ideas popping up within different fields. So you can see ideas about reproducibility, so that's being able to get the same results when you do an experiment again. There's the term meta-research and team science and data sharing. So these ideas are popping up in different fields. So it's not that meta-science is necessarily its own distinct field, it's actually distributed across a lot of them. So this is a really interesting aspect. So to make it a bit more concrete, what questions could meta-science as a whole address? So how would research ecosystems evolve if success was measured by long-term societal impact instead of short-term publication? What would a truly decentralized global research system look like, and could it outperform traditional academic institutions? And how does the structure of research funding shape not just what questions are asked, but who feels able to ask them? So these are just 3 examples. Obviously, with it being so broad, there's lots of questions like this that it could be addressing. So how does research innovation work currently? So basically, it's a very complex system, and there's many different stakeholder groups involved. And the sort of challenge with this is that these groups have all kind of evolved separately and they're siloed. So one obvious example would be things like a lot of academic publishers are for-profit companies, whereas obviously a lot of private institutions which are doing research, either charities or some other structure, but there's sort of underlying values, and obviously today we're going to be talking about values, so I think it's important, can be misaligned in some cases. But I think generally one way of thinking about meta-science is if this was just one big company which was doing all of these steps, there would be some budget allocated to R&D to try and improve the processes of how we do things. But because they're all separate, they speak different languages, they have different priorities, different ways of working, it's really difficult to actually get anything done in terms of improving things, because you have to work across all these different groups. And then again, at the end there, you can see entrepreneurs. So again, leading into that angle of not just, again, admiring the problem, it's actually, we need people to be building out these solutions. So platforms or tools or, protocols, whatever it might be, new institutions, new ways of doing research. We need people with the skills to actually build it as well. So it's not just pure academics. So the Meta-Science Alliance problem statement in general is improving the research system requires more of this cross-sector collaboration. This is difficult due to sector and geographic silos. So we aim to address this by founding the Meta-Science Alliance, a distributed network that facilitates coordination between organizations and individuals to improve the research system. So it's not a research institute itself. The primary goal is not to necessarily conduct this research, although, for our internal processes, we'll be taking a bit of a meta-scientific approach and kind of iterating and experimenting and trying to improve things. But research outputs is not the main goal of the Alliance. It's to bring these separate groups together and facilitate those. So So in terms of getting involved, again, it's kind of early days. We haven't even kind of officially launched yet, but you can read more about the Metavaluation Alliance in the initial concept document, which is linked there. We've got a mailing list if you want to stay updated. Again, I appreciate not everyone will be able to do this, but if you are in London, you can join us for the official launch on Metascience 2025 conference. And then again, websites and socials are coming soon as well, which will be great ways to get involved and stay updated. Okay, so that's it for me. Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please go. Yep.
Cool. Hey, Adam. Thanks for that. That was great. I don't know how much you know about the DeSci space generally and any sort of things that are trying to be achieved there. I know someone mentioned that they were at Microbiome now, which is more on the funding side of DeSci, but on the meta science side, my company, DeSci World, we're very, very much interested in sort of knowledge generally, de-siloing knowledge, contextualizing knowledge, localizing knowledge, giving more people value over their own knowledge and such things. And I think there's a lot of overlap here. And I see the meta science. I didn't see you really mention too much on the sort of crypto blockchain side of that. Have you given much thought into how those things interact?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, so I've been following DeSci for a few years now, and it's really interesting space, right? Because again, as probably all of you who are in that space have come up against, academia is it's very challenging. A lot of other people have kind of to get these ideas into those spaces. And that's the reason why these other initiatives like DeSci projects are being developed to try out kind of outside of that system. Yeah, so there is a lot of overlap, sure. And I'm definitely happy to chat more about getting involved with that. So.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll reach out.
Cool. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so I think that gave a kind of overview of the very broad, diverse set of projects, values that are in this space. And so now the remaining 20 minutes, okay, I'm going to whip through a really quick presentation. This is not going to be the last time I'll present, so there'll be plenty more opportunities in coming weeks and months. But hopefully you can see my slides, and if I move from the slide I was just rapidly editing. Is that coming up okay? I'll need an audio, I can't see. I'm just going to assume it is. Someone can shout out if it's not. Okay, so I've called this Yes?
Yep, all good.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. So I called this a coming own story, because we like puns. So I'm going to be going through the purpose, vision, mission, progress, and roadmap of OHM. And so the first thing is the purpose. Now, I mentioned before that my driving force for the last 20 years has been to try and find a solution to climate change. And I don't think I really need to make a big point about this. We're killing the earth, we're killing ourselves in the process, we're killing all of living beings as we continue to rampage through this capitalistic machine. And it seems like our current systems are failing to correct course, and so we need to take radical action. And so that is the driving purpose behind this project, is to find a way to solve climate change, and in doing so, minimize suffering to all living beings on the earth. Now, the vision for this is, like I said, a combination of multiple different movements that really coalesced into this common vision. And the place that I believe we're going to, or at least the solution that I think we could reach, is I'm not the only one with this vision. There's the entire decentralized movement has a very similar vision. The idea is that we could have an interconnected network of people around the world who are all coordinating effectively, sharing knowledge, wisdom, skills, resources to solve very complex problems in an interconnected way. And the last part of this puzzle that came in was through my attending modifier, which was a great inspiration for me. And at the time, I had been designing and theorizing about the potential model that we could explore to overcome the collective action problem in academia that Adam touched upon. And attending Modifier, I realized that this was actually an incredibly creative space, and was potentially a space where we could start to explore some new ideas. And so this then coalesced into the mission with the launch of our first festival, which was a gift-based festival called Heart and Mind. After that, the idea came into that we could actually use that space to prototype this radical model that I've been developing for academia, because I'd also realized that academia is not a very progressive space, and there's a lot of restrictions and limitations on the kind of work that people can do there. And so this then became the mission of OHM, to use these festival spaces as a free container within which we can experiment with new ways of doing things and prototype solutions for broader society. And so that brings me to the objective. This is really our goal, is to develop a system that's based on open science principles, that can quantify the collective value of literally any contribution to that community with respect to their shared values and goals. Because if we can do this, then we can basically work out the percentage of value that each person brings to the community, and we can directly reward them, empowering them to keep on giving. Now, in thinking about this problem in the academic space, there's a problem that I don't think has been solved yet. And this is that if you're going to determine the quality of things, you need to evaluate those things. But then there's no real incentive for providing those evaluations. Now, obviously, evaluations can be better or worse quality, and so you need some kind of a quality control mechanism. But this then leads to a problem, because you have a problem of infinite recursion where you've got people reviewing contributions, people reviewing those reviews, people reviewing the reviews of the reviews. And you end up with this endless trail where you can't really close that loop. And so the model that I'm going to share to you basically attempts to close that by using this self-recursive feedback loop. And it does this while remaining experimentally controlled in line with open science principles, reliability, transparency, and so on. It's very simple and flexible to very diverse types of contributions. And it's very simple so that everybody in the community can participate. And it's inclusive in the sense that it can value all diverse forms of value that people provide. So that leads me to the mechanism. The term we're using for this is metavaluation. And this is basically a reference to the idea that we're valuing valuations of contributions. And so the way we do the valuations is through pairwise comparisons. We just give someone two contributions and ask them to tell us which is more valuable on some dimension of interest. And so this can be, say, some money that somebody has donated versus a piece of code that somebody's created. And this is nothing new. People use pairwise comparisons a lot. They're a very simple, inclusive mechanism. Everybody can do them relatively easily. The unique thing that we're doing is embedding those pairwise comparisons in the contribution set and submitting them to the same process. So this is where we get meta. And now instead of comparing two contributions, you're comparing one contribution versus some number of these valuations. And so you can see in this example, I'm comparing 100 pairwise comparisons against this piece of code. And basically by sampling a large number of people with a range of these different meta contributions, if you will, then we can collect a data set that allows us to automatically determine the value of basically every single contribution. And we do this using a standard unit that is pegged to the relative value of a single one of these pairwise comparisons. So I'll come back to that. So that was the mechanism, and this is a universal mechanism. We don't own any of this, but the idea is that many communities could use this same mechanism. But we're also developing this as part of a broader framework that allows a community to iterate continuously over its life cycle and evolve their systems and processes. And the idea is that basically within any one community, the community can identify a set of values that they care about, and they can also identify a set of contributions that they want to reward. Then they use that mechanism that I just described to complete these reviews. They also do the meta reviews, like I mentioned. And then collectively, this gives you a relative valuation of every single contribution. I'll show you data on that in a minute. But once we've got that, we can do this on multiple dimensions. This then enables the automatic reward of people. And we can also recognize and respect experts as well as people that are contributing meaningfully to this system. the idea is that this can create a virtuous cycle where people are rewarded for basically any contribution. And because we can value contributions that also improve this system, it means that we're going to get better and better over time at recognizing and rewarding value, and that only incentivizes more value to be created. And one other element is that because we can value contributions automatically, we can also distribute money automatically. So I'll come back to that. I'm going for time, not very well. And I'm still on the mission part of the talk. Okay, so this is how that same mechanism can apply across multiple communities. So the basic idea is that at OHM, we'll keep iterating in this, we'll keep developing our tools and systems, but if other communities adopt the same mechanism and framework, then they can also start iterating. And basically, if different communities adopt the same dimensions, like say gratitude, like we've been prototyping with, then it creates a pathway for value exchange and recognition. So communities could now start to automatically exchange value now at the community level by valuing each other's contributions and automating this kind of energy exchange. So this is our progress. We started with this inaugural festival. And yeah, I just want to shout out to Troy and Angie, who were pivotal members of this and also in the years following. But this really kicked off the first of our prototyping. We then completed a number of festivals where we explored different processes. We merged with a charity in the meantime. We received a number of donations, and we started building an app. Did a whole bunch of other stuff, probably too much stuff, to be honest. But what I want to highlight is that we, once we'd prototyped in the festival space, we then took that data to an open science conference and then presented that data, and that then kicked off a new prototype where we were using the same system to value contributions to that conference. And minutes left. Okay, so I'll whip you through that data. This is just the sort of single use case that's going to show us how the system works in detail using this conference as an example. So we invited people to nominate contributions. We also invited attendees to nominate a number of dimensions, and we selected these 6 that you can see here. We then took this representative sample of contributions and we performed reviews on them. And so we did this by balancing these comparisons. Everything gets compared to everything else the same number of times. And then we just give people A versus B. So in this case here, you can see down the bottom, we were asking somebody to compare a lightning talk versus this hackathon. And on each of these dimensions, just pick A or B. So tell us which is more generous, which is more inclusive, and so on. And so those are the regular reviews. Then we move into the meta review phase. And so here we throw in these pairwise comparisons into the mix. And then we fully balance the design again, and we ask people to compare those pairwise comparisons to regular contributions. And so here in this example down the bottom, you can see that somebody's comparing that same lightning talk, but now to 100 of these pairwise comparisons. And so again, if somebody responds on all of the dimensions, what this gives us is a data set that we can use to calculate this score for every single contribution. And so I'm showing that here. So what you can see in the blue dots is the number of votes that each of the meta contributions received. And then on the y-axis is the score that we've given it, because each one of these votes that people give is worth 1 point. And so then this blue line you can see is basically fitting a function, which we then use to calculate the score for every other contribution. And so I'm showing you the normalization procedure for gratitude, but of course we can do this across multiple dimensions. And what this gives us then is this multi-dimensional representation of the unique qualities of every contribution that we've measured. And so in this plot, you can see that each axis is a new dimension, and each line, each colored line represents one contribution. And you can see that the value that they receive on each dimension varies according to which contribution it is. And from there, you can do all sorts of wonderful things. So this is really just a proof of concept for some of the things you can do, but the basic idea is that this is a born open, pure data set that you can filter in any number of ways and answer all kinds of interesting questions. And so what I'm doing here is I'm extrapolating the data that we gathered to unknown values of other contributions to the conference. And so basically we measured 160, or we estimated scores for 163 contributions. We also, in that process, we calculated a gratitude per minute for certain types of contributions and also a gratitude per dollar. And these data then allow us to do really interesting things, because we can start to look at the total gratitude that people received for a particular contribution versus, say, the cost that it took to put that thing on. Right, and so this is basically a proof of concept that we can automatically reward people based on the value that they add. So in this slide, you can see the total gratitude across everybody's contributions, and you can see that one person in particular, who was the AMOS president, Adrian Barnett, put in way more effort than anyone else and received a lot more gratitude for all of the admin and all of the work that he did behind the scenes. And this is a very common story. Having organized events myself, I know that it tends to fall on one person, and there's a lot of work that happens in the background that no one's ever really aware of. But the idea is that through this system, we can start to bring these contributions to light, incentivize their adoption, and then start to decentralize this process so that maybe next time some people can take on some of those tasks that he didn't really need to be doing because anybody could have done them. And this is also a proof of concept that we can reward people automatically. So we've tagged the data in various ways. And so you could basically, at a very simple level, just reward people based on the gratitude for their contribution, or you could look at a particular project. And for example, this project, and if you were interested in funding it, then you could automatically distribute money based on the metrics that we've collected. Okay, and so I'm probably going to whip through because we've only got 5 minutes left. So long story short, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. And following this data set, I then have been traveling the world the last year and sharing with various communities, particularly decentralized pop-up villages, which I'm finding is a really exciting generative space. And through this, we've made some more learnings, and we've also met a group of wonderful developers that are now developing an MVP for us. And so, yeah, I want to shout out to all of our prototypers. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have the time to name all of you, but it's been an absolute blessing, and I'm grateful to all of you for helping nudge this project along in various ways. And well, this slide was to just say that we can start measuring things in a new set of values that we define, and that is really what today is about, is how do we define those values moving forward. Been through that already. Right, I'm not going to have time to do this in the meeting, so maybe I'll have to go over it in a future meeting. But basically, the broad idea is that we are iterating on an annual basis, so this system will keep on evolving, but we're also going to now, with this meeting, launching into a new phase of every month, we're going to be focusing on a new topic, and we're going to be using our system to explore a new use case that can hopefully help communities self-organize. And so this entire process will build up and through the release of our open source app, which should be in a few months' time, and it will culminate in the hosting of a decentralized gathering in Brisbane, Australia, which is called OHM Gathering. And what I want to highlight here is that many of you are not from Brisbane, and that's great. I'm really glad that you're here. And I want to say that this is not just about things that are happening locally in Brisbane, because you can play along at home. And so the idea is that we're going to keep testing and iterating on this. And if what we're developing is useful to you in your own communities, in parallel or afterwards, after the series, you can then take what we're doing and apply it in your own way to solve your own problems in your own communities. And so every month we're going to have a weekly cycle. So we're going to have a meeting at the same time as today, basically. So this exact same time next Monday, there will be another meeting that will be the first of this mini iteration cycle. And the basic idea is that we're going to build, test, learn, and then communicate every month. And we're going to do that with a specific use case in mind. And so this week's use case is basically to try and rank order a set of values that we can then embed into our governance documents. And the idea is that, well, we've realized that we need a way to prioritize dimensions because the system will allow in the future to add extra dimensions into the mix. But we need to figure out a way of choosing what those dimensions are. And so that's where we're going to start with this first experiment, is basically prioritizing a set of values that we want to embed into our documents, and they can feed into the way that we evaluate things as a community. And so to kick things off, or more correctly, ChatGPT has given us a list of 6 values that are common to these 3 movements that I brought up before: permaculture, Burning Man, and open science. So to just begin the conversation, which unfortunately we're not going to have much time for a conversation today, but we can pick it up next Monday at the next meeting. We've got 6 here. I mean, personally, I think they're quite good, but they're not set in stone. by any means, but I think they do seem to capture the essence of these three movements fairly well. But for our prototype, what we want is a set of 10 values. And so this is going to be an invitation to anyone in the community to jump into our prototype and nominate contributions. And the idea is that through the next week, we'll accept every nomination that people want. At the next meeting, next Monday, we will then collectively decide what is the set that we want to evaluate. And then the following week, we'll put that out to the crowd. And for that, I think I can close with these calls to action. There's 3 levels here. Choose your own adventure of how involved you want to get. The first level is that I would hope everybody here does at least, is to join our new newsletter, because this will be our main way of communicating information. The second level is, if you'd like to speak as well as here, is to join Telegram. And then the third level is to join GitHub, or probably actually more correctly, the action level should also be to jump into the prototype. But I'll be sharing this via our Telegram. So if you want to stay in the loop and be part of this process, then please jump on there. And yeah, I hope to see you. The end. I'll leave these showing. I'm going to check my agenda that I've run over massively. I did have Q&A, but we're like right on the time. Does anyone, how about we just like give people permission to leave? And I will say thank you very much for attending. And I realize that it's been an hour and many of you may have meetings to go to or bed. So you're very welcome to leave. And yeah, thank you for being here. But if people would like to stick around and ask questions and have a chat, then I'll be here and we can do that. Thanks, everyone.
Cooper, hey,
Hi.
I think someone posted a really interesting question. I don't know if you read that or if you can have, yeah, what's your thoughts?
Right. So the question is, how is all this process any different from social scoring perspective? Related to that, how would you prevent the formation of cliques and an opaque hierarchy in the community? Probably things you have been discussing, so just take this as a lame cue from a curious newcomer. Not lame at all, thanks, Asley. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so the way that I think it's different from social scoring, or at least the example that people often throw at me is what's it called, like in China, where they do kind of like social credit scoring. That's a non-consensual system that has been imposed from the top down. What we're creating here is a fully consensual system and everybody opts into. So firstly, you only play the game if you choose to play the game, and you should be well informed about the game that you're playing. And hence, to loop back to what I said at the beginning, this is why everybody signed a covenant that says that you agree to play this game with us and that you might not be evaluated in the same way that you think you should be. But we're basically doing the best we can. The second element is
yeah, can I just making sure? Oops.
Yeah.
Like, about just to respond to what you said, that means that transparency is one of the values that will be essential if you get into your community or whatever, and it's like you play the game with all. Is that would that relate to, or?
Yeah, I mean, transparency is a huge part of it. Like, everyone needs to be aware of the game that they're entering into. Everyone needs to know the rules. Everyone needs to know the kinds of ways that people have played before. And so that's the data that we're sharing. And so with that information, you can opt in to play this game. But it is an imperfect game, and we're never really going to measure value properly. So everybody needs to accept that this is an experiment with inevitable errors and approach it with that same perspective. Yeah, and so the second part of the question. No worries. And so the second part of the question is, how would you prevent the formation of cliques and an opaque hierarchy in the community? Yeah, I mean, this is a big problem, and I don't think we're going to solve it immediately. The way I see this becoming is a ongoing dynamic experiment where the community is continuously checking in, conducting meta research on the system that we're developing, and improving the way that we do things. Inevitably, there's going to be some of this stuff going on, and that's unfortunate, but I think it's just a necessary part of communities. It happens in every community. But hopefully by bringing transparency to it, and allowing this kind of self-reflective process, we can address these kinds of problems as they arise.
Hey, Cooper, can I jump in on that? Because we've had these conversations, and I think one of the other things, the transparency was really important, but also the capping, so we understand a level of power that's manageable with individuals. But then, yeah, also I think, like you said, it is complex, but it's I think the building the value out of contribution as well. So there's transparency as to why someone has maybe more influence within a group, and it's traceable, and I think that's a really important part. But it is complex, but there's new technologies emerging that are helping with this challenge. So yeah, but it's good. I think it's definitely in the right direction. We've got to solve that problem.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Got a question from Yoshi. Is blockchain going to be the main technology behind that? That was direct message to me, but I hope that was meant to be read out. Yes, that's the intention. Yeah, so it's been designed in a way that is decentralizable. The process is certainly it's as decentralized as I think it can get. But the technology right now is not. So we're building our MVP in Web 2, and this is mostly because it's quicker and easier to do so. Web 3 comes with a whole bunch of extra questions and things to consider. And to be honest, we're still figuring out a lot of the model mechanics. And so the idea is that we will move into Web 3 if and when we get the support to do so. So if there's any developers out there that like this and would like to see this built in Web 3 way, then would love to hear from them. But then secondly, also as we've figured out the processes and figured out the best way to build it. Yeah, so that's the idea. I hope that answered your question. Can't see any other in the chat, so any other live questions?
What's the
yes.
next steps, Scoops?
Oh, so next steps is to join the meeting next week. Well, join Telegram, because then I'll be posting the links in Telegram for where we can create this prototype. Yeah, the immediate next step is to nominate some values for entry into our prototype. So this will be open. Anyone can nominate any value that they think is missing. So would love and encourage everybody to have a look at the prototype, which I can actually link in, because why not? Oh, no. So yeah, I'll drop that into the chat. I've done that as a direct message. All right. Yeah. So if anyone wants to look at the prototype, that'll be the next stage, basically. So building up to next week, the meeting next Monday will be anyone can nominate any value that they think deserves to be considered. And then in next week's meeting, we will finalize that list and then put the prototype out to the crowd. So people will then have a chance to vote on these values. And then at the end of that process, at the end of the month, we will have a set of values that are ranked in order of preference according to the community. And then we can embed those into our documents and use them to guide us. I feel like time was running out in my introduction to that idea. It's a big rush. But we got there. Any other questions? Well, in that case.
Thanks, Scoops. That was great.
Thanks, DP. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here and sticking it out.
Yeah,
Thanks, Cooper. That was really interesting.
Meeting.
I hope to see some of you at the meeting next week and many of you at the meeting next month. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, Coop.